Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Monday. I know this is a catch-up stream. We missed the last week because of issue at home, and then yesterday because of Father's Day. So we're probably going to get back to the Sundays relatively soon. But this is the catch-up stream. So this was, out of nowhere. I don't expect a lot of people to be on this stream, but either way, it's a good catch-up stream. What's up, Doc? Glad you can join me. Wasn't expecting you of all people, man. You need to get back to the golf course. You shouldn't be in here watching. You should be playing. But what an open yesterday. That was quite an event. Once that weather started kicking up, it was anybody's game. +4, my prediction. It was looking good there for about an hour left, but we all know how that went. Okay, so let's get caught up here. First on the screen, I can't push play on this one because this one was a pretty big file, so it'll skip around. So we just got to go with this. Let me see here. On my rowing machine at the moment. Oh, speaking of rowing, man, I shouldn't have worn this tank top. I needed more like a bra top. All right, so this is Eric. Eric, fairly new to the channel, big fan of how you break down swings. Thank you so much. Would love to have you take a look at mine. I've included both iron and driver swings, but I'm more curious of my driver. Okay, so we got his driver up for him. He seems to get very jumpy, and when I've tried to tone that down in the past, I end up hanging on my back foot the whole time. Driver misses overly right, and some days you pull. So we're going to look at plane work and see if planes are being affected for that. Just been hitting full on hosel shanks. I'm assuming that's for the iron. If you start shanking driver, man, that's rough. Okay, let's take a look. So again, we can't do a replay right now because you'll see it's very glitchy. So if we take a look at this, what we're going to be looking for is planes. What's this, Eric? That's me. My bad. Hey, okay, perfect. Thanks, Eric. No problem. It's no rhyme or reason. I don't know why it does it. Some people, I push play and it skips. Some people's perfect. So I just don't know. But you're the unlucky one today. All right, Eric, glad you're on. So I can ask you some questions. So in terms of your swing, have you been working on stuff by yourself? Or do you have somebody that you work with? Because I see there's quite a bit of separation here. Now, let me just check your planes to see what could cause the pulls and the rights. Now, when you say you pull them and they go right, is there motion in the air, or is it just a direct, like straight pull, and then a big banana slice, or is it just pushes, pulls? If you could just let me know that too, because that's pretty important as well. Yeah, so honestly, just by looking at this, you have some pretty good positions. Just by looking at this, I do see a lot of disconnection in terms of sequencing. So looks like your lower body goes initially, upper body kind of hangs back behind there, and then you have to do, a last second catch up with your hands and arms. There is a lot of tilting going on, not necessarily as much rotation. Pull is usually with irons, rarely with driver. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because I'm looking at this plane. The plane looks okay. It's nothing severe. I do see where you can possibly go right with this one. Is your natural ball flight with a driver more of a draw that comes back to the target, or do you lose this to the right as well? Meaning your good shots, even your good shots, you might lose to the right. But in terms of the plane looks okay. It's definitely coming inside to out. You have a higher finish. I'm just looking more at your sequencing here. So let me see if I can make sense of this while this video loads up here. Let's see. I'm afraid to, try and get too, I can't even move it. Yeah, I'm afraid of getting too detailed with this video just because it might blow up the whole screen, the whole computer, and then the whole stream is lost. So we'll do this. Okay, so it looks like, I don't know if this is where you start the setup. So your hands, the club head is behind the golf ball, and it's okay. But in terms of your tilting, you can see there's a lot of tilting down right, which will then push out your ball position very far off your left side. Now, obviously, if you play that ball position, that's going to give you the fades, because at that point, you either have to move your centeredness over to match that, because if you stay back like you say you would, and that ball position is out in front of the tilts where it would be, your path will always be left. But because you move that ball position a little bit further back, to catch up to this. So in other words, your ball position, let's do this in blue. Your ball position is up over here. So it's not quite as far as your setup is. So it is back in relation to your tilting, but your centeredness is still well behind that ball position. So you have a good centeredness. The tilting's a little bit off in relation to that ball position. So maybe the first thing I would look at is, leveling out your tilting slightly so you don't have so much right shoulder tilt, because you can see at impact, you still carry over a lot of right shoulder tilt and you get a little disconnected too. So if you take a look at your backswing, good lower body. I don't know how much you can turn. Right about here, you see your lower body kind of stalls out and you keep moving with the upper body. I don't see much more turn from there. And the rest of this is just arms and hands getting to about here. So if we take a look at where your parallel is, so where there's your shoulder turn. So your club is, it's definitely not getting to the tee. So if you were to turn and keep your shoulder, the club related to your turn, that would be more like your parallel. So you can see you're still short. I don't see much disconnection on the way back. Definitely on the way down, I see a lot of movement towards that lower body first, and all of a sudden your hands are still behind a little bit, and now they have to make up for that tilting down at impact. So we see as you get down to here, if we connect your shoulder tilting, you can see your shoulder tilting is already coming up based on your first setup. We can see now the centeredness of this tilting has shifted the center of your swing down over here. And your arms are pretty far connected on the right side. Now, this would be okay for like an LPGA player that doesn't have a lot of upper body strength like guys do. And they do need a lot of this rotation more so than tilting, although they do both really well. At impact, you can see their whole body is facing the target because they're using rotation as their source. Guys don't usually have that because we're not as flexible to begin with. And you see you stall out, you don't really keep turning, you stall out and start tilting, which then shifts your path, a little higher and to the right. And we can see that. So you do have an inside to out path, which is good, but there's disconnection. So it's almost like this just looks to me like you're just slapping at the very end. There's no real connection of the power. And what I mean by that is, if you look at boxers, when they do, this type of punch, they don't do this and then all of a sudden they have to do that to make impact. They connect to their body and they just turn together. So this is the connection you're probably missing. You're probably getting more like this and then this little slappy motion. So ideally, if you want to keep this tilting, that's fine. But if we take a look at where your hands should be, so let's draw this in yellow. So we're not trying to get too confused here. So hands would like to be in the center of that tilt. So I know this isn't really the case, but look how far off your hands are from where the center of your tilting is at this point. At the bare minimum, they should be more like over here. So you want to kind of split the difference. And what this will do is will keep everything connected as you move through the ball. So you're turning your tilting and your arm release can be timed up with everything instead of playing, catch up and slap. Because right as you get down to impact, you see your whole body's kind of stopped turning and tilting, and the hands just have to, got to reconnect somehow. And they do a good job connecting, but it's just a little bit too disconnected at that impact point, which is what you really need to focus on. So we do have an excessive tilting going on here. We can see that the hands do a pretty good job of meeting that tilt at impact, but they're just it's a little bit too much tilt. This would be okay if you could hang back, like your centeredness would be back over here, more like the long drive guys. So you see the long drive guys don't have this excessive curvature. They just basically stay on that right side and tilt their whole body back like this. So this is decent if you can just stay on the right side, but you can't because you're unwinding and you're having to flash at impact. Let me see here. Always felt like my hips were really fired to start my swing, but I haven't been able to stop that. Yeah, it's I have fast hips too, which also puts me in a position where I get down an impact and I have to, do one of these to time it up. What I've done, and I'm not saying it's going to work for you, but what I've done is felt like from the hips down are just basically like solid pipes. They can't move anywhere. And then from there, just feel like you're grounding your hips. Don't even try and move them. Almost feel like they're doing the opposite on the way down. Feel like they're staying back in a close position. as you fire your upper body. It won't happen, but the feeling of you doing that might put you um, in a position to at least meet yourself in the middle. You know, we're not trying to all of a sudden get you to stop and be perfect, but if we can get you to alleviate that lagging and throwing at impact, even if it's a little bit each time. So at this impact, you probably just want to feel like it's less tilting going on here, a little bit more stable with the upper body. So there's not so much spine tilt back, which will also help you. Because if you get this going on, your hands are already behind as well, and they have to throw. So more of the upper body just moving and turning, hands out in front. A good way to try and get the feel for this too is have like a basketball in your hands, connecting to your chest from the top of your swing. Feel like that basketball is still keeping up with the rotation of your body. Because if you think about, this is another way to think about this, is if you're here, revolutions per minute, the hands rotation this way, as long as it's keeping up with your turn and tilt, they're going to be moving the same revolutions per minute as the rotation of the inside, just like a wheel hub. But miles per hour, the hands are moving significantly faster because they're on the outside of that circle. So if you get the inside of the hub to fire so fast, they're behind anyway. So they have to really increase their speed down at impact, and now that leads to throwing. Then you start to lose your angles because as you pick up that hand speed, you automatically start to lose that angle. So you just want to feel like it's a slower rotation with the body, but quicker with the hands because they're trying to keep up with the outside of the circle. So I don't know. Hope that helps you. I mean, I don't see much wrong with your setup other than maybe a little bit too much tilt at the start. Maybe just level that out and feel like you're slowing down things, specifically with the transition. And it takes a while. I mean, transitions are tough because they happen so fast. And by the time you're thinking about it, you're already down at impact. So slower swings, feel like you're just methodical with your practice swings. Take 10 slow practice swings. And then when you hit a golf ball at like 30% power and 30% speed. You can video it from there and then see where your disconnections occur. And then you'll probably find a speed that you disconnect more at. Let's say it's 60%. Then okay, I can't practice above 60% until my 60% speed looks more like I want it to look. And then go to 70 and then see if it breaks down there. And then just keep doing that until you can get to a full swing. But hope that helps you. All right, this is this is an interesting way of sending a video, isn't it? It's like a Xerox of a Xerox. So this is Eddie. As you can see from the drill, to cure that over the top, I can still manage to hit the ball, no problem, without hitting the foam pad. What is this? Is this the right one? Oh, yeah, there's the foam pad. Okay. Desperate for help. Playing about 18 years, no matter what drill I do, my body somehow adapts to hitting the ball from another position. My right arm is slightly bent. All right, let's take a look. Does it show the time that Eddie recorded this? No time. Okay. Let's see here. There's a swing. All right. It's a unique way of doing this, I guess. Okay, hands going up, club goes below. A little long, but pretty good turning. A little steep. And I can see where that issue comes in. Let's see the face on. Hopefully this zooms in correctly. Here we go. Okay, we got a 4 press relative to our tilting, which could create some issues. Okay, there doesn't look too long. It looks pretty good there. We know it's steep. Yeah. I thought he missed the ball, but look at that. I thought, man, he's got 2 golf balls there. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely some setup issues that I would definitely address just to give you a fighting chance to stay in your posture and also get that club to be not as steep. Now, there's nothing wrong with steepness, but if it gets too steep, that's where we get into some pretty serious issues here. So we see the tilt. Let's see, can I zoom this one in so we're not looking at? All right, there we go. Okay, let's make this line so it's not so big. That's a little ridiculous. All right, that's a little too small, but we can kind of get an idea. All right, so now we can see that this setup is going to be a challenge because we're going to have to find a way to make ourselves more upright. Yeah, Doc. more upright. So we might be standing out of our posture a little bit from this position. But you can see that here, we know that it's going to increase, right? So let's make this a little bit bigger. So we know that right now this golf setup is getting our hands to move up, which, some people need that. But for an iron, you want to make sure it's still swinging slightly down. Now, I know that we do have the shoulders going down or up depending on your grip. Obviously, if you're lefty, your left hand's going to be lower, which in turn lowers the left shoulder. But once you start increasing it more than that, now you're going to be dealing with some angle of attack issues. So we know that if you sequence correctly, now for the lefty, the right hip's going to bump towards the target, upper body's going to fall back as a result. So we're going to increase this a little bit more as well, which will then bring our centeredness way out in front of the golf ball, which now we're leaving with some issues. We've either got to stand up to allow room for our hands to throw, or we better just hope that we can hold that angle as long as we can and still not break our wrist when we go straight down into the turf. So there could be some issues that we have to deal with. Now, I'm not saying you can't be successful like this, because it all depends on your natural ability to make the necessary adjustments. But let's take a look at the adjustments we make here. Oh, and by the way, there is that forward press. So here's that forward press we're looking at. The forward press relative to the spine is this angle here. So we're going to have to find a way again to make up that angle too. So we've got potential angle of attack, and then also closing that gap down to make your dynamic loft a little bit more easier to get some height. Because we don't have the club head speed for spin loft. Spin loft is when you can get that forward press and still strike down, but you have enough club head speed to use that. So most of us don't have that ability. So we get to the top of the swing. We're doing pretty good with our spine angle. We're still in that spine angle. As we come on down, we start to level the shoulder tilting out slightly. So we can see there's not much increase of tilt naturally. So we're learning to hold off. Instead of driving this way, we're learning to hold off that and get more rotation, which will then give you a steeper plane, steeper path, and that's going to be some issues. And as we strike the golf ball, there goes that release of the hands. So we do get a little semi chicken wing here. Let's see if there's that chicken wing. So the chicken wing is just preventing you from breaking your wrist. So you can't get rid of that chicken wing, because if you do, you're going to break some wrist. The only way to get rid of that chicken wing is to get set up a little bit more accordingly to utilize that club. And remember, the club is a tool, and if you set up so you can use the tool correctly, then things just kind of go naturally. You don't have to fight so much. So your dynamic loft at impact is very important, and how you set up your static loft according to your tilting is very important, because that affects your dynamic loft. So you have to look at what I'm trying to do with this club. Am I trying to swing down? Am I trying to swing up? Right now, this looks like a setup that's trying to swing up, but we know if we do that with an iron, we're not going to hit it very well. We have to swing down. So we have to make these in-swing adjustments to override our setup. So if this was me and my students, we'd be looking at ways to get this club head to point, the grip to point more at the golf ball, the center of the chest. And we might have to level these shoulders out slightly to give him a more upright posture, so he's not hanging back and he has to cure that on the way down. And this little motion here gives you steepness. You're working the other way. You should be working this way. So if you can start taller, then you can sequence correctly. And if you sequence correctly, now you get a natural forward press instead of an unnatural forward press that's set up. And we don't have the club head speed to create the spin loft to use that. And we're just not gifted enough, unfortunately. That's just how amateurs are. If we were gifted enough, we'd be on the US Open leaderboard somewhere, but we're not. So that's my first recommendation. Definitely get looking at your setup and how things work around that setup. Thanks for being back so quick after what you've been through these last days. Your analysis golf has become kind of an addiction. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a little rough, but you got to get back to doing your stuff. But I appreciate your well wishes. Thanks for all the support too that you guys sent me. It's very much appreciated. My family appreciates it too. So definitely appreciate everybody. But from the down the line, let's take a look here, just to make sure to see if we stand up. This is a first recording of a phone. So let's take a look at the plane work here. So we know we've got that forward press. You can see this high plane work. So there's not a lot of plane work to use here, which could be an issue. Hands are right on that plane work, good. Now this club being behind could also be, standing a little too close to the golf ball when you record it, but we can definitely see it's veering below that plane. Even if it was filmed further back, it would still be below the plane. We get our arms right on that secondary plane line. So it looks pretty good in terms of here, but right there, that's what we're trying to avoid is that. So if you want to check your swing at home, go to the top of your swing, do this little triangle, and then see where that club needs to work down in that triangle. Now, if your hands are typically higher based on your setup, you better reroute them. So you look at Jim Furyk, his hands get way up there. He finds a way to reroute and then drives. If they get low, that depends. Some people get low and then go back up, which is fine, but you don't want to go low and then above the plane. So it's so user biased, and obviously it depends on your body. So this is just analytical just to help you look at your swings. So if you take a look at this motion, you see how it follows this line right away. That's steepsville. That's trouble. There's no way to recover from that unless you have very, very fast hands and are able to compensate. Once you're there, it is tough. And now you're going to have to figure out something out. So he's just kind of left with these hands and arms to save the day. But a lot of this has to do with that forward press and the tilting at the start of the swing. You're not quite using your sequencing correctly. You're setting yourself up for not promoting good sequencing, because if you sequence correctly from that setup, you're going to get a bad result. So you're going to have to figure out a way to sequence differently, and that sequencing differently is steepening, and then it's over. It just depends on your hand-eye coordination. So hope that helps you. Very unique way of sending videos. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but but hey, it worked. So let me know if you need any extra help when you watch the replay. All right, next up. This one we can watch. Perfect. This one is Rick. I hope so. 38 years old, 10 handicap, been playing golf regularly for about 10 years. Average 18 holes a week and have a garage setup. That's perfect. So I can practice fairly regularly. My current pattern is a draw with misses being blocks and push fades. Former slicer. We got to get your former slicer sticker. We got to make those. That would be kind of fun. No substantial physical limitations, though I did take your 23 questionnaire and scored a 46. Okay. Since then, I've been reflecting on what swing pattern might fit me the best. And I remember what I played some decent golf using stack and tilt. So I'm working on getting back to that. Something more simple and compact. Okay. Stack and tilt is great if it fits your body type. I played some of my best golf using stack and tilt. Just the body didn't live up to it. My back was not able to hold on to that. But there's some days where I really feel like I compact my swing. I like have a half a swing and I get really stacked on the left side just to find a way to hit a ball in the fairway, and I still hit it really good. So stack and tilt is definitely a much simpler method if you think about it. You're controlling the low point to not move so much, but it does come at a cost because it's a pretty violent motion if you're not used to it. So I wouldn't readily recommend it unless your body's fit for it. So let's take a look here and see what's going on initially. Okay, we got that forward press again. All right, low point. Okay, it's there. It's almost there for stack and tilt. We again, though, see a lot of tilting right here. So if you look at this in your home, if you're ever watching this, anybody, not just this gentleman. So there's your shoulder tilting. So your hands are going to want to find that. That's basically, if the shoulders stop tilting there, that's where the clump becomes the longest, is at that point. Now, obviously, we're going to tilt a little bit more. So if we go a couple more frames, there's one more tilt, and there's another tilt. So right where that tilt is, the club, that's a horrible line. There's the tilt. So the club head should be meeting the center of that tilt. Now, if you take a look, the hand is throwing to get that club head to meet the center, and the hands are behind. That means there's some disconnection going on there, and the hands have to make up for the disconnection. So one way to avoid that is to try and not get so much tilting. So here, if we can reduce the amount of tilting, at least there, the hands would meet up with the tilt, and you don't need to throw the hands. We can almost see the hands kind of throwing under to play catch up. So there's a lot you can learn from your shoulder tilting because that just controls the centeredness of your golf ball at impact. That's one way to take a look at it. Number two is the bottoming of the circle. So even here, Again, that's the longest point, but the bottom of the circle is going to be up in the sky because the ground gets further away from you the further out you go. So there's going to be some disconnection issues. So if you were to look at true stack and tilters, they don't have much tilting at impact in terms of controlling their center point. It's more tilting on the way back and through. But as they get down to impact, you'll see they're not this way. They're more carrying this angle from the top of the swing. So if you go to the top of the swing here, if this was a true stack and tilter, you'd have to think about that left shoulder going straight down. But we can still see some rotation and not so much of that tilting. As we come on through this angle here, it's already pointing down. So right shoulder is already pointing down. You almost need to feel like this right shoulder is still pointing up as you move your center point more out this way. So somebody does it really, really good, and he's not stack and tilted. But if you look at Rory McIlroy from the top of his swing, he doesn't get like this. He gets like this. Like he's just keeping his shoulders level as he turns through. That just helps him control that bottom point. The moment you start doing this, the center of your circle shifts way out in front of your golf ball. And typically we start falling back when we get that shoulder tilt. So now we moved our center point behind the golf ball in terms of the weighting, but our impact point is ahead of the golf ball. So now it's down to this to time up the difference. So as long as you keep your center point, control your center point for stack and tilt and move it up. So you can see I'm moving it, but I'm not doing this. I'm not tilting right away. I'm just moving it, carrying that angle, and then boom, go down. So it levels out your angle of attack. It controls your center point. But this looks like it's a hybrid of traditional and kind of stack and tilt. EB, is this you, Rick? I assume. Let me know if that's you. If not, sorry. So from that point of view, I just look at that in your setup here. We can see that you got some wide shoulders, setups out in front. We do have that forward press again to deal with. So, it's okay to have a slight forward press with an iron, just a slight one. But most of the forward press comes down through a natural, sequencing. Natural sequencing gives you plenty of forward press. There's no reason to change a pitching wedge, your static loft pitching wedge, to be like an 8-iron with forward press. Because then if you sequence correctly, now that 8-iron loft is going to be like a 7 or a 6-iron. And then where do you get your height from? Unless you have the speed for a spin loft. So just be very careful. Look at the whole point of the club for you. That's why we have many irons. You don't have to all of a sudden de-loft your wedge so it goes the same as an 8-iron would. So just look at your center point here. Maybe move that golf ball position slightly up if you want to stay here. So maybe one golf ball width to give you that slight forward press, that's plenty. That's perfect forward press there. This is a pretty big forward press to make up for. In terms of your weighting, think about your weighting as the center point. So this is your center point right now. So you can see it's ahead of the golf ball. So for stack and tilt, you want it to keep it ahead of the golf ball. So we see there's pretty decent. As we come on into impact, we can see it's just ahead of the golf ball, but your shoulder tilting is too far under, which is going to push that centerness. So if you want to level these out slightly, and this comes with shifting your weight correctly, then you'll have your shoulders corrected. So impact will be slightly ahead of the golf ball, and pair that up with the weight distribution of your hands, your body ahead of the golf ball impact. It'll compress a lot easier, less moving parts. I agree with you. I think, stack and tilt, if your body can keep up with it, there's a lot of less moving parts. Does that make sense? A lot of less moving. There's more less moving parts. there's more parts that are moving less. I think I'm saying the same thing like 5 times. But in terms of your down the line, let's take a look down the line real quick. Let's check your planes here. And we'll zoom in once I get these sorted out here. And then let's look at your back brace line. Let me check your centerness real quick. Okay, pretty good centerness. All right, and let's zoom in. Okay, let's take a look. All right, so a little disconnection right away in terms of your shoulders. So this is where, we saw it on the face on. The idea for stack and tilt is you want to get those hands a little lower initially. So we're looking at the hands trying to be as close to that plane line as possible. So we see they start this veering up. And I notice you have that in the beginning of your swing. You have this little hitch, and it's now all of a sudden the club is going to be at that plane and your hands are going to be slightly up, which basically stems down to the shoulder tilting. Now, if you take a look at your shoulder tilt at this point, let's do this here. You can see how it doesn't match your setup. So your setup, we're going to do this in green. There's your spine angle. So you can see the left shoulder is already picking up too soon, which then pulls your hands up. So stack and tilt, you want to really accentuate that tilting and feel like that left shoulder is at bare minimum parallel to your spine angle. So here's your spine angle. We'll draw this in orange. Spine angle, left shoulders should be a little bit more like that. So I know it seems like minimal, but that keeps your hands lower to that plane line. It's going to reduce the amount of arm length that you can have, because as long as you keep that turn tilt relationship together, you'll start to feel some stretching going on in your lats. You'll feel like your body's locked up. And then from there, you can't go much further without breaking out of your posture. So you want to stay in your posture. Left shoulder goes down, get that center point more over the golf ball this way. And then from here, we talk about, not doing this motion, but more of that motion. So feel like the shoulders are moving more around instead of this unusual tilting. That should definitely help you out in terms of that. The shoulder down part. Joey, what do you mean by that? Are you talking to me about the shoulder down part? The left shoulder going down this way? Let me know. You do a decent job. I mean, you can see you try and reroute this guy in, but again, the shoulders there. I mean, look how much excess shoulder tilt we have. So it just needs to be a little tighter. Stack and tilt 10 words. What's the 10 words? I'm a little lost. So hopefully that helps you, Rick. Let me know if you need more clarification, but it's going to be on replay once I end the stream, so you can always watch it again. Weight forward and shoulder turn. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Joey, you got it. So he's talking about as you get here, get that weight forward and then turn instead of just kind of hanging back. Thanks, Tony. You got it, UB. Appreciate it. Good luck to you. And follow up too if you need some help. All right, next up, we have, let me play this. Good. No glitching there. Tim, how many have we done? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Tim. Really struggling with shanks. Oh, man. And poor consistency. I don't know what will show up round to round. I'm a 6.4 index. That's pretty good with shanking it all over the place. Shanks are the memories. I have very quick, short swing, and I don't turn my shoulders enough, but not because I can't. I'm super stiff and off plane, but fear the fixes I need to make will make things worse or take a long time. I watch too many YouTube videos and seems that every flaw is mine. And now I have 63 things to fix. I'm trying to just get a better takeaway, hinge earlier, less inside, hand path line, and full turn. I play D1 tennis. My hands were one of my assets. I fix it with my hands in golf. Okay. All right, let's take a look. Tim, if you're on, let me know. If not, you can watch the upload. Interesting to see how long Tim has played. All right. Face on. Let's see. Face on. Okay, yeah, that is I wouldn't say it's a short swing. I mean, it's definitely short arms, but looks like it's a decent body turn at least. Let's see from here. All right, let's see where the moment of truth here. Okay, so we do see some tilting down, weights getting stuck on the toes. I see what he's saying about being steep, but he does a good job. It's not necessarily his hands here. It's the body compressing into the golf ball. So if you look at the way the body is here, let's do this here. Man, these lines. Let's first of all zoom in. So we don't have to get our telescopes out there. And make this a little bigger. All right, so if we look at the posture lines here, so we'll notice that this posture gets shifted. So as we go into it, So it's almost like the lower body's going in and we're standing up. So we get a little bit of this way and a little bit of this way, which now changes things. So that definitely can help you drop the club in the slot by losing some posture. So he might feel like it's in his hands, but I believe it's more of a posture loss that allows that club to slot in. So here you can see that club is almost perpendicular to his new spine angle as he stands up. So there's a lot of moving parts, very small moving parts. I wouldn't consider this a what did he say? Flawed swing. I mean, he's 63 flaws he feels like he has. That's the problem, man. What is a flaw? Like, is a flaw based on somebody's theory, based on textbook swings? I mean, what is even a textbook swing? I mean, I've got like 20 books here. I got the PGA teaching manual that teaches a textbook swing, but I know zero people that swing like the PGA teaching manual. It's like, so, it's all relative. It's all you, right? So can you do things over and over again? If you can do things over and over again, just play with what you got. It's down to your misses. Like this swing, create misses that are all over the place that get you from being a 6.4 index to being a 2. And really 6.4. I mean, your misses can't be that off to be a 6.4 unless you have like some incredible short game that you're holding out from everywhere. This seems like a pretty productive swing. Yeah, there's some moving parts, and yeah, I can see how it could be timing oriented. But if you really want to get like nitpicky, you have to just think about how do you control this move here. And this is the big move I see that does require some controlling. So we go to the top of the swing here. So we have a club that is pointing a little bit high, right? So now we got to figure out, okay, how do we get that club to fall in the slot in that short amount of time? The club depth, is adequate. We can make that club depth work. It's not like it's stuck out on this side. So the club depth is okay. So it's definitely more connected to him, which is a good thing. I see a lot of turn, which is a good thing. It's not like we're not turning at all and using our hands and arms entirely. So this is the one thing I see. And the way he does it is he loses that posture and he shifts his weight into his knees. You see the knees, how the knees kind of collapse into the golf ball and his upper body pulls back to help those hands raise up so the club can fall down. That to me, I can see where, some shanks can come in just because if you do it too much, now you're going to hosel rocket it to the right side or maybe even toe shank it. But that's the only thing I see. Release pattern, look at the release, it still falls in that slot. So it's a good, it's a good swing. I'm not going to say it's a bad swing at all. I think, there's things you can improve upon. But look at that. It slots in pretty good. Just there, this is the only thing I can see can cause some issues. So it's the upper body moving back and the lower body moving into it. Now we're going to assume he doesn't really have any range of motion issues just because D1 tennis player. But so if this was me, I'd look at, let's give your lower body some more foundation, specifically from the hips, so you don't lose that posture. Maybe pull your feet back slightly, because if you look at the centeredness of your heels, there's the centeredness going straight up. And we look at where that club is versus the spine angle. So maybe move the centeredness back so it's supporting the back a little bit more. So keep everything here the same, just push the feet back. So let's say you can get the arches of the heels back over here. At least it'll straighten this out a little bit. So there's not a lot of, posture loss in. But then you're going to be standing slightly taller. There might be some more room. So the key thing is we're trying to create more room here for you to use so you can have some real estate for the hands and arms to kind of develop on their own while the body stays in its posture. I think the biggest thing for you is how do you keep your body in the posture? Now, the reason your body loses posture is to help you get that club in the slot. So this is where I can see you can say, okay, well, if I start one thing, I got to change another thing. And yes, that's true. So this is one of those things where your swing is reliant upon itself. If you change one thing, the whole swing is going to just fall apart. So this is a decision you have to make, with that in mind. If you want to change your setup position, you also have to change an in-swing principle position. So we can see as we take that club back, our head falls down. So this is a, increase of tilting. So we need to increase the tilting, maybe to get your hands deep enough so your hand depth can work. And now we've increased the tilting. So now we got to stand back up to, get the tilting back to normal. And by doing that, that helps drop your club in the slot. So you can see the swing just needs itself to survive. So if you change even your ball position slightly, or just that footwork that I suggest you change, your swing might collapse and you might hate golf. So you just have to look at it. Is it worth, investing a lot of time to change a couple things to go from a 6.4 to what's realistic? What do you want to be? Do you want to be a scratch golfer? It's a lot. It's not easy going from 6.4 to a scratch. The closer you get to scratch, the longer it takes to get better. It's ridiculous how hard it is to just shave off. From a 2 to a scratch, it's so hard to shave off those 2 strokes because you have to be perfect. From a 6 to a 2, it's hard, but it gets harder and harder. So what do you want to do? You want to be a 5 handicap? You can make the swing where you make 6.4, you can get 1.5 strokes better. Maybe just to avoid the shanks, stand back a little bit, but just keep swinging like you're swinging. So just be careful going down this YouTube rabbit hole, because you can just start to change a swing that doesn't necessarily need to be changed, because if you change one thing, your whole swing collapses, and then they've got a secret for you and you got to pay this and pay that. And now you're on an endless search for really nothing. So I don't know if I answered your question. Hopefully that makes sense to you when you watch this again. But if you do need some more help, just let me know. My suggestion is just make tiny little changes, back up a little bit. Think about maintaining your weighting a little bit more in your feet so you don't feel like toe or heel heavy. But be careful, because you actually need that to hit the golf ball. So tiny little changes. Don't make drastic changes. Your whole swing's gonna fall apart. All right, next up, Greg. Let's take a look. Oh, lefty. All right, let's take a look at what Greg's noticed. Attached a down line of face on, right-handed. Oh, I'm right-handed and the phone flipped. Okay, so we actually have a righty. Not sure what happened. I don't know if it matters, but I'm 55, 8 handicap, but practice enough that I really should be a +1. So something is off. Hopefully you can give me some directions. So just remember, practicing, if you practice a lot, it doesn't warrant you to be anything. It's how you practice. Do you practice your weaknesses? Because to get from a 8 to a +1, man, you got to have very little weaknesses, and your weaknesses has got to be pretty strong. So if you spend a lot of time practicing, make sure you practice correctly. Take statistics. I have a Excel spreadsheet. For those guys that like old school stuff like me, you just plug in your numbers. You keep track of a bunch of stuff. It just populates something. It gives you all these things to look for. And then after 10 rounds, it'll say, okay, here's your area that you suck. Like, you really need to focus on this to help you score better. Perfect. Let me work on this. And in the meantime, I keep my stats going, and it keeps updating, and it just points you in the right direction to practice. So that's the one thing I can say about practicing. Just because you have millions of golf balls doesn't mean we're automatically going to be tour players. Not to say that you do, but this is for the average person watching that thinks it just comes from hitting multiple golf balls. And then if you just hit multiple golf balls, you could be ingraining the wrong thing, and you could just get away with it one day and think you got it, and you come back the next day and it's gone. So just be careful. All right, let's take a look at the down the line. That's not the right one. There's down the line. All right, so we definitely have some shoulder alignment issues, which gives you a steeper takeaway. All right, club is decent. All right, so yeah, we see some loss of posture. We also see some alignment issues. Now, I'm not saying that's bad. You can make anything work, right? As long as it's repeatable, as long as you do the same things over and over again. But is it to the point where even when you repeat it, it's hard to repeat it over and over again? I'm Saijin Kai. Sorry if I misspoke that. New here, plus 4.2. Man, who has a long backswing that all my clubs are parallel to top. I have one-way miss, which is getting stuck. I've tried everything to shorten my swing, and I'm assuming there's another message coming there. Let me know. Vertical golf. A friend of mine did exactly that. He went from an 8 to a 12. Are you talking about practicing all the time? Vertical. All right, so let's take a look at plane work. Let's do that a different color so we can see. All right. Let's take a look at centeredness. Okay, centeredness is decent. All right, so we know we got some open shoulders at starting point, which will definitely get those hands and club to go higher. We get to that secondary playing line, pretty decent. Haven't lost much posture. Shoulders doing good. We drop it in. It is a little steep. Not too bad though. Hands aren't too relied upon, so it's good. Definitely that alignment kind of worries me. You take a look at your foot alignment. Your hips are slightly open to that, and your shoulders are definitely open to that. So, alignments is big. Ball position. You can still make it work. Ball position, though, take a look at that ball position. So we do have, and this is probably where that open shoulders are coming from. So we take a look there. There's your centeredness. Yeah. Okay. So when you start playing that ball position a little bit too far forward, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to promote swinging up, but you could be doing the opposite. Yeah, I hear you. Vertical. Try to improve your swing. I've seen so many people just bang thousands of golf balls and just, you've got to have a plan. You can't just go out there and bang golf balls. There's always a plan you got to stick with and to practice correctly. So when you start to try and get to that ball position too far out to your lead foot, you can get there two ways. You can tilt to get there, which keeps your alignment square, or you can turn to get there. So I see a lot of this mistake with golfers when they put that ball position way out in front. They need to turn their upper body to get there. Now, all of a sudden, they have a huge open shoulder issue. And right away, they either just pick up the club because it's basically, you're taking the club back based on an open shoulder issue. But now you've got a steep plane. You've got to reroute it somehow. It can work. I've seen plenty of guys that can make this work. But the problem is to go from, where you want to go to +1, man, it takes quite a bit of beautiful hand-eye coordination, quite some talent to pull this off over and over again. And any player on the PGA Tour, LPGA Tour, they definitely have severe hand-eye coordination. They're the flukes of nature, so we can always point to this person, that person. See, it's possible. Jim Furyk does this, but if you lined up, 10 million Jim Furyks swings, how many would make the tour versus lining up 10 million Rory McIlroy swings? How many of those would make the tour? Probably the Rory McIlroys, more of those will make the tour. So you can't just look at these outliers and say it's possible. It is possible, but you need to look at what makes it easier for you based on your goals. +1 is a pretty hefty goal. It's not reserved for a lot of people. But if this was me working with you, we'd be looking at that golf ball position more, closer to a normal shoulder tilt. We still have a forward press based on this shoulder tilt. Now, all of a sudden, with that forward press, you've de-lofted it, and now we have to add loft. So we might have to stand up and fall back to add loft. We have to close that gap down somewhere. We have shoulder tilting that is going to be not connected down in your impact position. So everything, if you want to really get to be a really good golfer, you have to look at your fundamentals and then let your body just evolve naturally from those fundamentals. I've got one more swing at the end here that is quite unusual, and it's a pretty cool thing to watch. So I can't wait to get to that one. But you make this work. You hang back. You're trying to add loft to it by hanging back. Is it? Put it this way. I mean, if you really want to be a +1 handicap, you can't do it on your own. You need somebody with educated eyes to give you some medicine to take to practice correctly. It could be simple drills. It could be, making sure, your alignment's correct, your ball position, having somebody just check on you once a week, once every couple of weeks to make sure that, hey, during this past 2 weeks, I can see you probably banged a million golf balls and you're back to being where you were. And because in your mind, you're probably thinking you're making changes, but you regress to where you were. And now you're just, burning candle at both ends with no results. So you really got to look at your setup. I mean, this open shoulder can create a lot of issues. So you got to close those shoulders up, make sure that they're lined up correctly. If +1 is truly your goal, make sure your ball position's correctly, matching your tilting based on your correct alignment now, and then just work on weight distribution. Your for what it is now, I'd say it's a pretty functional swing. For 8 handicap, you're happy to be an 8. Obviously, we want to try and improve a little bit. Can the swing go from 8 to +1? That's a tough one. That's going to take, a lot of hand-eye coordination and just a lot of repetition. And I just don't think it's there. So this one needs some definite personal attention. But if this was me, take that ball position back, 1 or 2 golf balls, square the shoulders out, and just stay balanced. No more falling back to try and add loft. And don't get that forward press. Really, you don't. Look at one of the best ball strikers, one of the deepest ball strikers, John Rahm. Take a look at his setup. His setup with his driver is like perfect. I wish people would watch John Rahm try to emulate just the setup, because his club shaft goes right in the middle of his shoulder tilt. He's like this. There's no forward press. He's connecting right to that power source. And he just, short swing, bam, just bombs it. But he's counting on the correct sequencing. So that correct sequencing allows that forward press to happen. Correct sequencing allows him to swing up. So this is a setup that's not promoting correct sequencing, if that makes sense. Hope that helps you. We got one more. And wait to see this one, guys. This one's very interesting. Look at that. All right, let's take a look. This is Caleb. Caleb, if you're on, that's great. If not, you can get to us in the comments. I posted this to Reddit recently and got reamed. This was a long bomb, about 265 carry. I've been playing for about 3 years, and the front foot thing is a weird way of me putting 100% on the back foot. Don't judge me too hard. There's no judging here. I've seen some funky swings in my day, so don't worry. Caleb, all right, good job. He's here. So Caleb, don't worry, man. We don't judge out here. I played with a guy in a Pepsi Tour event like 20 years ago. And this guy got up with a left-handed grip, swinging righty. He aimed about 40 yards right of the target every single time. And he would just loop it back around. Lost his footing like you did. And he shot 66. So I learned a long time ago that who cares what it looks like. If it's repeatable, if it's functional, if you get down to impact correctly over and over again, that comes down to your natural talent. So let's take a look here. I told this guy to send this here. Perfect. Looks good 3 impacts. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the moment of truth, right? So we're going to take a look here. So moment of truth. I mean, you look at that. So there's some good things happening here. Even though your feet are all over the place, they look fairly grounded here. We see that obviously you have, is that a split grip? Let's see if that's, yeah, split grip. So split grip, I started playing golf with a split grip when I first picked up the club. I love split grips. I just recently changed like 10 years ago. So your hands do a good job of keeping in front of your chest, even here. So you see there's not a lot of like flicking going on here. So you can definitely see some good things here. This looks like that guy. What's his name on the PGA Tour? That I think he's Korean. That just falls off. I did a swing analysis. It just looked exactly like his fall through. So, you're in good company. There's a guy on the tour that swings like this. I don't know if he has this, there's Elvis going on here, but, this looks like if I did that, man, I can just see my left ankle just snapping. I had about 1,000 people angry at me. I don't know why they're angry. Scotty Scheffler. No, not Scotty. It's a Korean guy. I forgot the guy's name. But he looks exactly like this passing pass. Just like that. Exactly. Right foot comes up. He's got this real flamboyant swing, but he just bombs it. All right, so let's just take a look at the starting point. We do see now this is what makes your swing unique, and what makes it work is it's definitely further out than normal. So this is getting to that one plane territory. We have a lot of shoulder bend forward. We can't really expect you to maintain your spine angle, but let's take a look as we get down to impact. So we definitely see, now this could also be the camera work because the camera's not exactly behind you, but we do see you stay in your posture relatively decent. We have a lot of, I don't think this is compression in. I just think it's you moving left that gets further away from the camera lens. So because we do see you still staying down. So you do a pretty good job of getting the weight distribution. I can see why you think that this left foot moving like that gets all the weight than it does. You can see that the right foot is definitely moving around because it's receiving some weight. We see that transfer, so the left heel kicks back down. There's that transfer going on. We see the right foot pushing up. So we do transfer the weight correctly as we strike the golf ball. There's not a lot of moving parts with the hands and arms. This action with the feet is probably just you, releasing all that that rotational energy so you don't break something. All in all, I mean, depends. I mean, what is your goal, Caleb? Are you just trying to, get more consistent? Are you trying to become a player? Are you just trying to enjoy the game? You just want to find out what your cause and effect is? Let's know your goal so I can at least point you in the right direction. But you do a really good job here. I mean, look at this. So your hands are still, connected to that center, which is really good. Still connected. Get a little bit off. Trying to shoot under par. What do you shoot right now, Caleb? And let me just ask you this. When you miss the ball with this swing, like how dramatic are the misses? Do you miss them both sides? Are they out of the park, and misses having cans pool? Or are they at least playable? Because that's, to tell a swing success is not the good shots. We can all hit it good. It's about your misses. I currently shoot 102, so you're close. And your misses, does this swing give you extreme misses, or are you at least able to keep it in play most of the time? It's very easy. I shouldn't say very easy. It's much easier to take somebody that shoots 105 to break 100. There's a lot of room that you can use. Short game, course management, choosing the right shots, playing to your strengths, avoiding your weak shots. Don't get too greedy, punch out. Like this, you can get there pretty quickly. But to go from 90 to 80, that's a big jump. 80 to 70, that's a huge jump. So you're in a good place right now. Most of them are playable 30 yards variance. Do you swing like this with your irons too? Or is it just with the driver? And if you do swing like this with the irons, how's your contact? Do you hit heavy? Do you hit thin? And your variance on your misses too. That's a cool swing. I like it. I like wild swings. They're just fun. Especially a wild swing that is actually functional. It's just, it throws people off. I mean, look at Arnold Palmer. This is a crazy wild swing, and he became Arnold Palmer. Heck no, my irons are pretty standard. Really? So it's just with this club you swing like this? Your irons are, kind of normal looking, if that's a way to say it? Because that's really interesting. So if it's just with your driver and you're hitting them, 30-yard variance, that's not too bad with all these moving parts. So it seems to me you have some good hand-eye coordination, some way to use your body sequencing. Yeah, it's just with the driver. Okay. So that's really interesting. I would say if that's the case, you can maybe tighten things up. But again, this swing is so unique that it is surviving because of its uniqueness. And if you change any part of it, it could just destroy itself. So if you're able to hit the ball decent, 30-yard variance is decent with that amount of moving parts, and you want to break 100, I would look at, keeping stats. Most likely it's going to be your chipping, your putting, course management, learning to hit, learning to put driver away for a lot of the times. Even on par fives, there's no real reason to hit driver unless you can, if you can hit it 300, then hit driver. But if you can't hit it 300, just hit hybrid or 5-iron off the tee. Just keep it in play. The more you keep it in play, the more you get used to scoring. Scoring is an art form. You have to learn how to score. There's certain people that just know how to score. Doesn't matter what their swings look like. And there's some people that have beautiful swings that just don't know how to score. They just don't have it in them. So that grittiness of finding a way to make your ball go in the hole sooner than somebody else is what you need to learn here. So I would just say, if you want, I have a stat sheet that I give out. It's nothing crazy, but it's an Excel spreadsheet. It keeps probably 15 or 20 things that you need to work on during the round. Obviously, you can choose what you want. Most of my students that are trying to get to a certain level, I have them choose everything. And it takes, a little bit to get used to keeping all that stats. But, the amount of stats that you keep gives you information that you can work on. And you can break 100 fairly quickly. It's with somebody that has a decent repeatable motion, and based on what you told me, this is decent repeatable, and your irons don't look like this. So, keep doing what you're doing, man. Don't let the people tell you this is a strange swing or it's it's not something you got to change or redo. If it works, it works. So send me an email, info@landgolfacademy.com. If you want that stat sheet, I'll send it to you. You can keep the stats. You can email me once they're filled out. I can point you in the right direction to practice and play. But to break 100, that's the goal. We're going to get Caleb break 100 month. So I'd say within a month, If you keep stats, you'll break 100. It's almost a Tony Brooks guarantee, but don't hold me to that because my guarantees are like Temu guarantees. All right, that's it for the show. Glad you guys could join me. What time is it? Perfect. This is a catch-up stream, so we're back to being on Sundays. Let me see what Caleb just said here. I'm currently practicing my irons a ton. I just really upgraded from an old set of Warriors to some PXGs. PXGs are good clubs. I played KZGs for 20 years. I think I've had them. I just recently changed 2 seasons ago because those KZGs were tip stiff, 2.5 inches, very heavy clubs, forged blades. I'd go out there and embarrass myself. I couldn't hit it anywhere. So I upgraded. I went to Roger Dunn, got some cheap $200 Callaways that were used. Man, I gained 30 yards just like this. They're so forgiving. Cavity back, cast clubs that just rock at the ball. Man, I love them. I don't practice. I just go out there and have fun. So definitely equipment can help you. But I'll see you guys on Sunday. We're back to Sunday until something else pops up, but hopefully nothing else will pop up. So I appreciate you guys' support. Let me know if you need help in the comments. Thanks for all the well wishes for my time off. Appreciate that too. Other than that, fairways and greens. See you this week.